Judges, actually the last verse in the book of Judges, and then we'll go back to the actual history of it. This is Judges 21 and verse 25. Judges 21 and verse 25. So this is to understand the context of what was going on during the days of the judges. It was about 450 years from the days of Joshua after he died until the days of Samuel. All right. Judges 21 and 25. In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. So that's something to understand when you're reading the book of Judges. Understand these are imperfect people. They're not necessarily quality examples that you should follow. Some are, most are not. All right. Every man did what was right in his own eyes because there was no standard. There was nobody ruling over the people. All right. And the judges would come along and try to correct the people. But as we see, or as we're going to see rather, that does not always work out. All right. So starting with Judges 1, and this week we're going to do a lot of reading. It's just going to be a lot of reading of the scriptures, maybe with some visual aids. All right. So this is Judges 1, starting with verse 1. Now after the death of Joshua, it came to pass that the children of Israel asked the Lord, saying, Who shall go up for us against the Canaanites first to go fight against them? Because Joshua didn't have time in his lifetime to, take out all the Canaanites and drive them out of the land. All right. The Lord left a few of them. We're going to read why here in a minute. And the Lord said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand. So he chose Judah to go first. And Judah said to Simeon his brother, Come up with me into my lot, that we may fight against the Canaanites. And I likewise will go with thee into thy lot. So Simeon went with him. All right. So why did Judah go with Simeon and ask specifically of Simeon? Give me a minute. I'll pull up this map real quick so that you can understand how Judah and Simeon's lands were intertwined. All right. Give me 1 second. This is the, yes, this is a good one right here. Actually, I want to use this one. This is probably my favorite one. It's got the most cities, and it's pretty well detailed. All right. So you can take a look at this. All right. So you see down here at the bottom of the map in the south, you have Judah, and Simeon is completely enclosed within Judah. All right. So that's why Judah said to Simeon, let's go take this land, because it's pretty much the same land that they're going to take. All right. So let's get back to it. So Simeon went with him. Verse 4. And Judah went up, and the Lord delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand. And they slew of them in Bezek 10,000 men. And they found Adoni-Bezek in Bezek, and they fought against him, and they slew the Canaanites and the Perizzites. All right, Adoni-Bezek just means the Lord of Bezek. All right, he was the mayor or the king of that city. All right. But Adoni-Bezek fled, and they pursued after him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and his great toes. And Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings, having their thumbs and their great toes cut off, gathered their meat under my table. As I have done, so God hath requited me. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and there he died. All right, so he killed 70 men in that manner of cutting off their thumbs and their big toes. So that's what they did to him when Judah and Simeon got their hands on him. All right. Verse 8. Now the children of Judah had fought against Jerusalem and had taken it and smitten it with the edge of the sword and set the city on fire. All right, before it was Jerusalem, it was Jebus, inhabited by the Jebusites. All right, so this is when Judah was originally taking the city. And afterward, the children of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites that dwelt in the mountain and in the south and in the valley. And Judah went against the Canaanites that dwelt in Hebron. Now, the name of Hebron before was Kirjath Arba. And they slew Shishai and Ahiman and Talmai. All right. Verse 11. And from thence he went, meaning Judah, went against the inhabitants of Debir. And the name of Debir before was Kirjath Sepher. And Caleb said, He that smiteth Kirjath Sepher and taketh it, to him will I give Achsah, my daughter, to wife. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it. And he gave him Achsah, his daughter, to wife. All right. Now, technically, that was lawful, if you read the scriptures. It doesn't say anything about marrying your niece or like first cousins or whatever. It's just immediate. All right. But again, remember, everybody did what was right in their own eyes back then. All right. And it came to pass, when she came to him, that she moved him to ask of her father a field, and she lighted from off her ass. And Caleb said unto her, What wilt thou? And she said unto him, Give me a blessing, for thou hast given me a south land, give me also springs of water. And Caleb gave the upper springs and the nether springs. So she convinced her father into giving her more land. All right. And the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro was his name, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which lieth in the south of Arad. And they went and dwelt among the people. All right, so these are people who are not Israelites living amongst the Israelites. Verse 17, and Judah went with Simeon his brother, and they slew the Canaanites that inhabited Zephath, and utterly destroyed it. And the name of the city was called Hormah. Also, Judah took Gaza with the coast thereof, and Askelon with the coast thereof, and Ekron with the coast thereof. All right. So here we see, again, let's look at the map. Here we see the coast being taken. All right. Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron. As you can see right here, that's the coast that it's talking about. All right. And you see Hebron is right over here. And Arad down here to the south. Hormah is over here in the land of Simeon. They're going to take these lands. All right. Let's go back. All right, verse 19. And the Lord was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron, right? So they were not able to drive out everyone. And they gave Hebron unto Caleb, as Moses said, and he expelled thence the 3 sons of Anak. And the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem unto this day. All right, so looking back at the map, you see how Jerusalem is a border city between Judah and Benjamin. All right, this orange section is the section of Benjamin. This green section is the section of Judah. All right, Judah took their part of the city. All right, Benjamin did not fully. All right. So you still had those Canaanites living amongst the northern part of Jerusalem. Verse 22. And the house of Joseph, they also went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them. And the house of Joseph sent to describe Bethel, meaning spy out the land. Now the name of the city before was Luz. And the spies saw a man come forth out of the city, and they said unto him, Show us, we pray thee, the entrance into the city, and we will show thee mercy. Right? Similar to Rahab in Joshua. And when he showed them the entrance into the city, they smote the city with the edge of the sword, but they let go the man and all his family. And the man went into the land of the Hittites and built a city, and called the name thereof Luz, which is the name thereof unto this day. All right? So, the point that I'm making here is that some of the Israelites, here's Bethel, by the way, a border city between Ephraim and Benjamin. Some of the Israelites were listening to the word of the Lord after the days of Joshua and going to take the land that the Lord had given them. All right. Some were not. Some were trying to be more diplomatic. Some were being more compromising. Some were trying to make agreements and peace treaties with the Canaanites, even though the Lord said make no agreements with them because they have defiled my land with all their sins. All right. Verse 27. Neither did Manasseh drive out the inhabitants of Bethshean and her towns, nor Tanakh and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Dor and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Eblim and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Megiddo and her towns. But the Canaanites would dwell in that land. All right. So that's over here. And as you can see on the map, Manasseh has 2 sections, the east section and the west section. This is all talking about the west section up here. This is all talking about, like I said, Dor, Eblim is down here. Megiddo is up here. All right. Here you see these different cities. All right. Nice. But guess what? Whenever Israel was weak or they were not keeping the commandments, the Canaanites would overcome them and tax them. All right. They did not utterly drive them out. All right. So from there, it just goes on to say more about how certain tribes did not drive out all the Canaanites like they were meant to. And sometimes the Canaanites would overcome the Israelites. All right, so we're going on to chapter 2. Because chapter 2 is very important when you're studying the book of Judges. Chapter 2 gives you basically a summary of the entire book of Judges. All right? I'm going to start with verse 1. And an angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochum and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt and have brought you into the land which I swear unto your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. And ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars, but ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? All right. So, God specifically said, don't make any agreements, don't make any treaties with these people, and throw down their idols, cast down their idols. Do not partake in their religious customs and ceremonies. But, obviously, the children of Israel did not listen. Verse 3. Wherefore, I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their God shall be a snare unto you. They will be a trap. All right? They will trap you. Okay? And it's not even like these other nations necessarily have to have it on their mind that they're going to be a snare and a trap to you. But regardless, that's how it will end up. All right, you begin to make covenants with them, these peace treaties, these agreements with them, and you will eventually learn their customs and forsake your own. Learn their gods and forsake your own. All right. Verse 4. And it came to pass, when the angel of the Lord spake these words unto all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. And they called the name of that place Bochum, and they sacrificed there unto the Lord. Bochum means weepers. And these different cities are named after events that took place. Like, for example, we read about Bethel in the last chapter. That was named Bethel by Jacob because that's where he saw Jacob's ladder. All right, he saw the angels coming up and down. Right, so he called it Bethel because he said, "Surely this is the house. Surely this is the house of God." All right, Bochum means weepers. Verse 6. And when Joshua had let the people go, the children of Israel went every man unto his inheritance to possess the land. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Lord that he did for Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. They buried him in the border of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres in Mount Ephraim, on the north side of the hill Gash. And also, all that generation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation after them which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. All right, so all of Joshua's generation, the people served the Lord because they had Joshua as an example, and even the ones who outlived him still had his memory. But then that generation that come after them was worse. All right, because they had no example like Joshua. All right, they just began to do what they wanted to do as opposed to what their forefathers told them to do. All right, sound familiar? Verse 11. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Baalim, meaning other lords. And they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, of the gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. All right, so they began worshiping the gods of the Canaanites. Verse 13. And they forsook the Lord and served Baal and Ashtaroth. All right, Baal and Ashtaroth, if you remember when we did the Babylon lesson, that is your Nimrod and Semiramis. All right, that's the Canaanite version of them. That's where all the pagan gods come from. That's their origins. All right. Verse 14. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of the spoilers that spoiled them, and he sold them into the hand of their enemies round about, so that they could not any longer stand before their enemies. All right, so this is the curses of Deuteronomy 28. All right, the Lord being angry against the children of Israel leads to their enemies overcoming them in war, and them going into captivity. All right, going into slavery. All right, verse 15. Whithersoever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil, as the Lord had said, and as the Lord had sworn to them, and they were greatly distressed. All right. Verse 16. Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. All right. So that's what the book of Judges is about. These different leaders of the people who come and deliver them from this captivity, or these captivities, I should say. Excuse me. Verse 17. And yet they would not hearken unto their judges, but they went a-whoring after other gods, and bowed themselves unto them. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in, obeying the commandments of the Lord, but they did not so, right? They quickly, as soon as, and we're going to read about some of them, as soon as the judges died, they immediately went after other gods again, all right? Verse 18. And when the Lord raised them up judges, then the Lord was with the judge, and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For it repented the Lord because of their groanings by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. So God heard their prayers. He heard their cries, and he felt compassion on the people. So he sent them a prophet. He sent them a judge to deliver them. All right. But then it's this cycle. All right. Where the people go off, start worshiping other gods. The Lord puts them in captivity. Then they cry unto the Lord because of the reason of their oppression. And then the Lord hears them, sends them prophets. They listen to the prophets, and they can overcome. All right? But then, as soon as that prophet dies, that judge dies, they're back into wickedness again. All right? It's a cycle. Verse 19. And it came to pass when the judge was dead that they returned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers. All right? So it keeps getting worse and worse every generation. In following other gods to serve them and to bow down unto them. They ceased not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way. Verse 20, and the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel. And he said, because of this people has transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and have not hearkened unto my voice, I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Joshua left when he died, that through them I may prove Israel, whether they will keep the way of the Lord to walk therein, as their fathers did keep it, or not. So basically, God left the Canaanites in the land for temptation. All right? So that they could tempt the Israelites to show whether or not they're going to be righteous. And obviously, Israel failed that test many times. Verse 23, therefore the Lord left those nations without driving them out hastily. Neither delivered he them into the hand of Joshua. All right? So now we're going to chapter 3. And like I said, it's a lot of reading on this, but this is important history to understand when it comes to the context of the people. All right? Judges 3 and verse 1. Now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan. Only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at the least such as before they knew nothing thereof. All right, so God left them there so they could understand how to fight. All right, how to war. Verse 3, namely 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and Hivites that dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entering of Hamath. All right, let's see if we got all that on this map. Not entirely, not really. Obviously the Sidonians are up here in Sidon and Tyre. All right, that's north. And then here you see Damascus up here in the far north. Hamath is over there by the Euphrates. You can't see it here, but it's north east from the children of Israel. All right, Mount Hermon is right here. Might have to zoom in for you to see that. Mount Hermon is very north, the northernmost section of East Manasseh, and was north of Gilead. That's like Bashan. But the Philistines are all in this land that was given to Judah. Philistines are all along that coast, that Gaza coast. All right. And what else did it say? Okay, yeah, Mount Lebanon. Mount Lebanon is in the north as well. All right. Verse 5. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, and Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. Verse 6. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods. All right. That's one of the major snares, one of the major ways that people serve other gods, is by marrying other nations outside the children of Israel. All right. That was never something that the Israelites were supposed to do. Even back in Deuteronomy, when God said, you're going into the land of the Canaanites, do not marry them. All right? Do not make any kind of agreements with them. You're supposed to drive them out. You're supposed to cast down their idols. All right? But obviously the children of Israel did not listen, and still don't listen unto this day. Verse 7. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgot the Lord their God, and served Baalim and the groves, all right, other lords. And the groves is where they would make idols, where they would set their idols, in tree groves. Verse 8. Therefore the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Chushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Israel served Chushan, that's a hard name, Chushan-Rishathaim 8 years. All right, so that was an 8-year captivity of Mesopotamia. It's off on this map. You don't see it right here on this map, but it's in the Middle East. Give me 1 second. Map of Assyria. This will show the Mesopotamia. So Assyria came after. I'm just using this map, but Mesopotamia is right here, in between the Tigris and Euphrates. All right. Okay. Let's go back. Chushan-Rishathaim 8 years. All right. Verse 9. And when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel, who delivered them, even Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel, and went out to war. And the Lord delivered Chushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand. And his hand prevailed against Chushan-Rishathaim, and the land had rest 40 years. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. So, here you see a captivity of 8 years, and rest of 40 years. All right. Verse 12. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel. All right. So yeah, I pointed out Mesopotamians, Moabites. They were used to be right next to the children of Israel. You see them down here to the south, but that's your so-called Chinese people. That's your Moabites. All right. They used to be neighbors in the land until they were moved east. Maybe we'll get into that one day when we get to their history, but it's not important right now. Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. Verse 13. And he gathered unto him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and went and smote Israel and possessed the city of palm trees. All right. So Ammon would be the relatives of the Moabites, and here you see them right here east of the children of Gad, and that would be your Japanese. All right, not the exact same people as the Chinese, but they are their relatives. They are their brothers, both children of Lot. And then it said Amalek, that is a sect of Edom. Amalek would be your so-called Jewish people today. All right, they converted in the Middle Ages. I'm not going to necessarily get into that history because it's not important, but that's who they are. And went and smote Israel and possessed the city of palm trees. Verse 14. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. All right, so you had the first captivity under the Mesopotamian king was 8 years, had rest 40 years, and now it's 18 years. All right, the captivities get worse and worse each time. All right, so you just imagine somebody who was, let's say they were a kid during the days when that Mesopotamian king came up, right? And they lived their life. It's going back and forth between captivity as they were growing up, and then peace, their young adulthood, right, for 40 years. And then now in their old age, they're going back into captivity. All right, verse 15. But when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised them up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, a man left-handed. And by him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. But Ehud made him a dagger, which had 2 edges, of a cubit length. A cubit is like 18 inches, all right? Specifically, a cubit is from the tip, this is how they used to measure it, from the tip of your middle finger to the tip of your elbow. All right, it's about 18 inches. And he did gird it under his raiment upon his right thigh. All right, so he was left-handed, got it up under his right thigh, so he had that strategic advantage. And he brought the present unto Eglon, king of Moab. And Eglon was a very fat man. And when he had made an end to offer the present, he sent away the people that bare the present. But he himself turned again from the quarries that were by Gilgal, and said, I have a secret errand unto thee, O king. Who said, keep silence. And all that stood by him went out from him. And Ehud came unto him, and he was sitting in a summer parlor, which he had for himself alone. And Ehud said, I have a message from God unto thee. And he arose out of his seat. And Ehud put forth his left hand, and took the dagger from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. And the haft also went in after the blade, and the fat closed upon the blade, so that he could not draw the dagger out of his belly, and the dirt came out, meaning he stabbed him in the intestines, and the food that was already digested, right, the feces that was already digested, it came out, right? But you gotta think this is like some James Bond type stuff, sneaking in with the dagger, right? He's like, I got a present for the king, and the king says, everybody get out the parlor, right? Everybody get out the room, and then he pulls it on him real quick and shoves it in him so vehemently that it just goes all the way in him, and the shaft of the or rather the handle of the blade goes in too. All right, verse 23. Then Ehud went forth through the porch and shut the doors of the parlor and locked them. Right, so now he's got to sneak out. Right, it's like some espionage stuff right here. Verse 24. When he was gone out, his servants came, and when they saw that, behold, the doors of the parlor were locked, they said, surely he covered his feet in his summer chamber. And they tarried till they were ashamed. All right, so they waited until something's got to be wrong. He still ain't come out. All right, and they were ashamed of that fact. And behold, he opened not the doors of the parlor. Therefore they took a key and opened them, and behold, their lord was fallen down dead on the earth. Verse 26. And Ehud escaped while they tarried, and passed beyond the quarries, and escaped unto Sirith. And it came to pass when he was come, that he blew a trumpet in the mountain of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mount, and he before them. And he said unto them, follow after me, for the Lord hath delivered your enemies the Moabites into your hand. And they went down after him, and took the fords of Jordan toward Moab, and suffered not a man to pass over. All right. So, as you can see on the map here, the fords of Jordan would be like they went into, like this is the Jordan River up here. It goes down into the Dead Sea. And that's how Moab would cross and get into lands of the children of Israel, right? But they had blocked this area off right here. A strategic move. Where was I at? Verse 29. And they slew of Moab at that time about 10,000 men, all lusty and all men of valor, and there escaped not a man. Right, so they were the Jet Lees and the Bruce Lees and all that kind of stuff. Verse 30. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80 years. Right, so that's rest for 80 years. All right, so you had 8 years of captivity, and then the deliverance led to 40 years of rest. Then you had 18 years of captivity, and the deliverance had 80 years of rest, right? So, as you can see, the captivities are worse, but the rests become better, all right? Verse 31. And after him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, which slew of the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad, and he also delivered Israel. So, in Judges chapter 3, we have 3 different judges. We have Othniel, Ehud, and Shamgar being talked about, all right? I'm just blowing past these real quick, trying to at least. And here in Judges 4, we're going to start talking about Deborah and Barak. All right, verse 1. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord when Ehud was dead. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dealt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. All right. So here you have Jabin, the king, and his main general, his main captain is Sisera. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, for he had 900 chariots of Prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at that time. Verse 5. And she dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in Mount Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. And she sent and called Barak, the son of Abinoam, out of Kadesh Naphtali, and said unto him, Hath not the Lord God of Israel commanded, say saying, Go and draw toward Mount Tabor, and take with thee 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali and of the children of Zebulun, and I will draw unto thee to the river Kishon Sisera, the captain of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his multitude, and I will deliver him into thy hand. All right, so Deborah has to step up and be like, look, the Lord already told you what you need to do. Why have you not done this yet? All right. Verse 8, and Barak said unto her, If thou wilt go with me, then I will go. But if thou wilt not go with me, then I will not go. You see that right there? So Barak has a spirit of fear on him. All right? He can't just do what the Lord had told him to do. He needs a woman to tell him what to do. All right? Verse 9, and she said, I will surely go with thee, notwithstanding the journey that thou takest shall not be for thine honor. For the Lord shall sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. You see that right there? So she said, look, I'll go with you, but you got to understand that because you have the spirit of fear, the Lord will not deliver Sisera into your hand. And we're going to read what she's talking about later on, that prophecy that she spoke about. But also, whenever you don't never hear about Barak, all right? You only hear about Deborah. Because he was fearful. He had that spirit of fear. And he wouldn't go unless a woman went with him. All right? And I'm saying that specifically because it's unusual for a woman to go out to war at this time. It's very unusual. It's not like today when there's, this gender mixed army. No. The woman would stay at home while the men go out and fight. But he said, no, I need a woman with me. All right? In verse 9 it says, and Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. Verse 10. And Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh. And he went up with 10,000 men at his feet, and Deborah went up with him. All right. So it mentioned the river Kishon. I believe that is here the same as the Yark. Let's see. Let me zoom in. On this map, I believe it's the same as the Yarkon. No, the Kishon is up north. Okay. The Kishon is up here. Through Manasseh, and you see Zebulun and Naphtali up here, up in the north. You got the Kishon River. All right. All right. Verse 11. Now Heber the Kenite. Remember the Kenites? They're the ones who are the family of Jethro. All right. The Kenites who were not the children of Israel, but they lived amongst them, which was of the children of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, had served himself from the Kenites, or had severed himself from the Kenites, and pitched his tent unto the plain of Zanaim, which is by Kadesh. All right, so this is Heber. All right, he's one of these guys. And they showed Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinoam, was gone up to Mount Tabor. And Sisera gathered together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people that were with him, from Harosheth of the Gentiles unto the river of Kishon. And Deborah said unto Barak, Up, for this is the day in which the Lord had delivered Sisera into thine hand. Is not the Lord gone out before thee? So Barak went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. And the Lord discomfited Sisera and all his hosts. No, and all his chariots and all his hosts, with the edge of the sword before Barak. So that Sisera lighted down off his chariot and fled away on his feet. Right? So they lost that battle. As far as Sisera and his host, these Canaanites, they lost that battle very badly. So that it sent this captain, this main general, over all these soldiers that sent him away running. All right, he lost his chariot and all that. He had to run away on foot. Verse 16. But Barak pursued after the chariots and after the host unto Harosheth of the Gentiles. And all the host of Sisera fell upon the edge of the sword, and there was not a man left. Verse 17. Howbeit, Sisera fled away on his feet to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. For there was peace between Jabin the king of Hazor and the house of Heber the Kenite. You see that right there? So Heber had made a league with these Canaanites. All right. And verse 18. And Jael went out to meet Sisera and said unto him, Turn in, my lord, turn in to me, fear not. And when he had turned in unto her into the tent, she covered him with a mantle. And he said unto her, give me, I pray thee, a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. And she opened a bottle of milk and gave him drink and covered him. Verse 20. Again he said unto her, stand in the door of the tent, and it shall be, when any man doth come and inquire of thee, saying, is there any man here? Thou shalt say, no. Right? So he's basically, he's had a relationship with Heber, right? So much that he knows his wife, and he knows that when he came to Heber's house here with his wife, he's like, hey, hide me out, right? If he might comes looking for me, tell him, you ain't seen me. Verse 21. Then Jael, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent and took a hammer in her hand and went softly into him and smote the nail into his temples and fastened it into the ground, for he was fast asleep and weary, so he died, right? So Jael, again, this woman is the one who killed Sisera. It wasn't Barak. Barak didn't get to have that glory, right? Because he had that spirit of fear, so much that he needed a woman's help. Well, God said, guess what? You're going to get a woman's help. This woman that you don't even know, she going to kill your enemy. All right? This Jael, wife of Heber, the Kenite. Verse 22. And behold, as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him and said unto him, behold, come, and I will show thee the man whom thou seekest. And when he came into her tent, behold, Sisera lay dead, and the nail was in his temples. Verse 23. So God subdued on that day Jabin the king of Canaan before the children of Israel. And the hand of the children of Israel prospered and prevailed against Jabin the king of Canaan until they had destroyed Jabin, king of Canaan. All right. So on that day was deliverance. All right. So chapter 5 is the Song of Deborah. And it's good. It's prophecy, but this is a history class. We're not necessarily going to go into it. We're going to touch on things here and there, like verse 9, because a lot of people like to use Deborah as like, well, see, she was, a feminist of her day and all that kind of stuff. But no, she was a prophetess. Yeah, because women can be prophetesses. But she did not want to lead the people into war. That's not what she wanted to do. All right. It was Barak had that spirit of fear on him. And he was like, the only way I'm going out there is if you come with me. All right. And verse 9 really proves it. Verse 9, my heart is toward the governors of Israel. Right. So she was not a governor over Israel. All right. She didn't usurp authority over the men. All right. That offered themselves willingly among the people. All right. Because there were people that were willing to go. And we're about to read that here in a second. So again, to understand the dynamic. Bless you, the Lord. All right. So I'm going to jump down to verse 14. Out of Ephraim was there a root of them against Amalek. After thee, Benjamin, among thy people. Out of Machir came down governors, and out of Zebulun they that handle the pen of the writer. All right. So understand, in these days, the people were not united. All right. Every tribe looked after themselves. Every man looked after themselves. Every city looked after themselves. They were not a united people at that time. All right. It was every man for themselves, every city for themselves, every tribe for themselves amongst the children of Israel. All right. Verse 15. And the princes of Issachar were with Deborah, even Issachar, and also Barak. He was sent on foot into the valley. For the divisions of Reuben, there were great thoughts of heart. All right. So Reuben was not in the fight. All right. Not the way that Issachar, Zebulun, and Naphtali was, etc. All right. Verse 16, why abodest thou among the sheepfolds to hear the bleatings of the flocks? For the divisions of Reuben, there were great searchings of heart. They said, like, we really could have used the Reubenites out there, but they did not come. All right. Verse 17, Gilead abode beyond Jordan. And why did Dan remain as ships? Asher continued on the seashore and abode in his breaches. All right. So here you see, like, because they mentioned Reuben. Reuben is down here, right? And the fight was going on around the Kishon River, right? And here, Gilead is this general region with Gad and the southern part of Manasseh, southern part of East Manasseh. And when it mentioned the east of the Jordan, here's the Jordan. So here you have the 3 tribes, or 2.5 rather, that's on the east side of the Jordan. They remain where they were. They didn't come to help. All right. His breaches, right? So again, Asher was right there next to it, but they didn't come out to fight. As you can see, they're right next to the Kishon. All right, but they did not come out to fight. Verse 18, Zebulun and Naphtali were a people that jeoparded their lives unto the death in the high places of the field. You see that right there? So, again, I just wanted to point that out because it goes back to what we read first about how every man did what was right in their own eyes, right? They didn't see the nation as one. They didn't see the 12 tribes as one. They saw each city as their own, each tribe as their own, each man as their own, all right? They didn't see themselves as a nation. So, from here, I do want to read about one more judge tonight because we mentioned the three that was in the third chapter. That's Othniel, Ehud, and Shamgar. Then we also mentioned Barak with Deborah's help. And now we're about to get into Gideon. All right, and this is 3 chapters, so I'm gonna try to do this quickly, but not necessarily glossing over much because it's all important. This is Judges the 6th chapter, starting with verse 1. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Midian for 7 years. Verse 2, and the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel, and because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them the dens which are in the mountains, and caves and strongholds. And so it was, when Israel had sown, that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites and the children of the east, even they came up with them, right? So Midian drove the Israelites into mountainous regions, into caves, all right? And they, verse 4, and they encamped against them and destroyed the increase of the earth till thou come to Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep nor ox nor ass, all right? So, like I said, until you come to Gaza, they wiped out all the land, because Gaza is down here in the southwest of Judah, right? So it's saying they wiped out everything from up here in Manasseh, all the way down. They wiped out everything, all right? Took away all their crops so that they couldn't eat. You know what I'm saying? There was no stores that you could go to back then. If you didn't have crops, you didn't eat. For they came up with their cattle and their tents, and they came as grasshoppers for multitude. For both they and their camels were without number. And they entered into the land to destroy it. And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. And it came to pass when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord because of the Midianites, that the Lord sent a prophet unto the children of Israel, which said unto them, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt, and brought you forth out of the house of bondage. And I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all that oppressed you, and drave them out from before you, and gave you their land. And I said unto you, I am the Lord your God. Fear not the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell, but you have not obeyed my voice. Right? So they cried unto the Lord, and the Lord sent them a prophet and said, Look, this is your fault. I told you this was going to happen, but you did not listen. All right? So this is only 7 years, but it's a harsh 7 years. All right? Very impoverished and oppressed. Verse 11. And there came an angel of the Lord, and sat under an oak, which was in Ophrah, that pertained unto Joash the Abiezrite. And his son Gideon threshed wheat by the winepress, to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him, and said unto him, The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. And Gideon said unto him, O my Lord, if the Lord be with us, why then is all this befallen us? And where be all his miracles which our fathers told us of, saying, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord hath forsaken us, and hath delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. He's saying, if God is truly with us, why is this happening? All right? I've heard great tales, great stories about the Lord, great testimonies. So why is this going on? And the Lord looked upon him and said, Go in this thy might, and thou shalt save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have not I sent thee? And he said unto him, O my Lord, wherewith shall I save Israel? Behold, my family is poor in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. All right. So it says Abiezer. Let's see if that's on the map. I don't know if it is, but not on this one. Excuse me. But as you can see, I believe he is in West Manasseh, not East Manasseh. I believe he's somewhere in the border of Ephraim region, somewhere around in here. I believe. I may be wrong on that. All right. Poor in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. Verse 16. And the Lord said unto him, Surely I will be with thee, and thou shalt smite the Midianites as one man. All right. He said, Look, I'm gonna I'm going to make it seem like the Midianites are just like one guy. All right, verse 17. And he said unto him, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then show me a sign that thou talkest with me. Depart not hence, I pray thee, until I come unto thee, and bring forth my present, and set it before thee. And he said, I will tarry until thou come again. Verse 19. And Gideon went in, and made ready a kid, right, a little goat, and unleavened cakes of an ephah of flour. The flesh he put in a basket, and he put the broth in a pot, and brought it out unto him under the oak, and presented it. And the angel of God said unto him, take the flesh and the unleavened cakes, and lay them upon this rock, and pour out the broth. And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord put forth the end of his staff that was in his hand, and touched the flesh and the unleavened cakes. And there rose up fire out of the rock, and consumed the flesh and the unleavened cakes. Then the angel of the Lord departed out of his sight. Right? So he got that sign where, you know, the angel of the Lord just produced fire out of nothing, out of nowhere. Right in the eyes of Gideon. Right in the sight, I should say, not in his eyes. Verse 22. And when Gideon perceived that he was an angel of the Lord, Gideon said, alas, O Lord God, for because I have seen an angel of the Lord face to face. And the Lord said unto him, peace be unto thee, fear not, thou shalt not die. Right? Because people knew back then, if an angel visited you, there's something going wrong. Right? Something's going to happen to you. All right? Verse 24. Then Gideon built an altar there unto the Lord, and called it Jehovah Shalom. Unto this day, it is yet in Ophrah of the Abiezerites, right? So he said, peace unto thee. Jehovah Shalom means peace of the Lord. Or the Lord has brought peace. Verse 25. And it came to pass the same night that the Lord said unto him, take thy father's young bullock, even the second bullock, I should say, of 7 years old, and throw down the altar of Baal that thy father hath, and cut down the grove that is by it, and build an altar unto the Lord thy God upon the top of this rock, in the ordered place. And take the second bullock, and offer a burnt sacrifice with the wood of the grove which thou shalt cut down. All right, so God's telling Gideon, all right, so take this altar that y'all have built to Baal, and the trees and all that you have carved into the trees, all that, and cut it down, build an altar unto me. All right, and sacrifice on it. Verse 27. Then Gideon took 10 men of his servants, and did as the Lord had said unto him, and so it was. I do want to mention this real quick, because he said he was a poor man in Manasseh, right? And he was the least in his father's house, but he still had 10 servants. That's what being, and this is even in the time of their oppression. That's what being free is, all right? We live in here in America, we subject to payments. None of us got any servants, and if you do, then you know you're one of the few. Right? People working for you, man. I just wanted to point that out real quick, because he's one of the poor ones. He's the poorest in his father's house, and he still got 10 servants. All right. I don't mean to lose the train of thought though. Verse 27. Then Gideon took 10 men of his servants, and did as the Lord had said unto him, and so it was, because he feared his father's household and the men of the city, that he could not do it by day, that he did it by night. Right. So he didn't want to be killed for casting down Baal. So he had to do it at night. And notice that Gideon feared his father's house, right? He had that spirit of fear on him. Not as bad as Barak, but he did have a spirit of fear. Verse 28. And when the men of the city arose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was cast down, and the grove was cut down that was by it, and the second bullock was offered upon the altar that was built. And they said one to another, who had done this thing? And when they inquired and asked, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, had done this thing. Then the men of the city said unto Joash, bring out thy son, that he may die, because he hath cast down the altar of Baal, and because he hath cut down the grove that was by it. Verse 31. And Joash said unto all that stood against him, will you plead for Baal? Will you save him? He that will plead for him, let him be put to death whilst it is yet morning. If he be a god, let him plead for himself, because one had cast down his altar. Verse 32. Therefore on that day he called him Jerubbaal, saying, let Baal plead against him, because he had thrown down his altar. Right? So that was a name given unto Gideon, was Jerubbaal. Verse 33. Then all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the children of the east were gathered together, and went over and pitched in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, and Abiezer was gathered after him. And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, who also was gathered after him, and he sent messengers unto Asher and unto Zebulun, unto Naphtali, and they came up to meet them. Verse 36, and Gideon said unto God, if thou wilt save Israel by my hand, as thou hast said, behold, I will put a fleece of wool in the floor. And if the dew be on the fleece only, and it be dry upon all the earth, beside then shall I know that thou wilt save Israel by my hand, as thou hast said. Alright, so Gideon, he needs sign after sign after sign, because he has that spirit of fear on him. He don't necessarily want to do this right away, even though the Lord already told him and already showed him a sign. Alright, verse 38, and it was so. For he rose up early on the morrow, and thrust the fleece together, and wringed the dew out of the fleece, a bowl full of water. And Gideon said unto God, let not thine anger be hot against me, and I will speak but this once. Let me prove, I pray thee, but this once with the fleece. Let it now be dry only upon the fleece, and upon all the ground let there be dew. And God did so that night, for it was dry upon the fleece only, and there was dew on all the ground. Right, so Gideon asked the first night that the fleece be the only thing that got any dew. The Lord made it happen. Second night, he asked for the fleece to be dry. The only thing that's dry, everything else had to do. God made it happen. Obviously, it's nothing in the eyes of God, but that shows you that Gideon not fully on board. He's a little bit fearful, starting out. All right. Judges chapter 7. And remember, Gideon called up, he sent messengers to, I think it said Asher, Zebulun, Naphtali, right? And Valley of Jezreel is around here. I believe it is, okay, yeah, Jezreel's right here, as you can see. Right there in Issachar. Close to Megiddo, but not quite. It's in Issachar territory. That's where they were, the Midianites were pitching their camp, all right? So this is Judges 7 verse 1. Then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Harod, so that the host of the Midianites were on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people that are with thee are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, my own hand has saved me. So God said, you got a lot of followers, Gideon. I'm not down with all of them. All right, verse 3. Now therefore, go to, proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whosoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from Mount Gilead. And there returned of the people 22,000, and there remained 10,000. You see that right there? So, of that spirit of fear, it wasn't as strong on Gideon, because he stayed. But there were 22,000 people who had that spirit of fear on them. God said, I'm not dealing with those people if they got that spirit of fear. Verse 4. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people are yet too many. Bring them down into the water, and I will try them there, or try them for thee there. And it shall be, that of whom I say unto thee, this shall go with thee, the same shall go with thee. And of whomsoever I say unto thee, this shall not go with thee, the same shall not go. So he brought down the people into the water. And the Lord said unto Gideon, everyone that lappeth of the water with his tongue, as a dog lappeth, him shalt thou set by himself, right? So that if they dip their head all the way down into the water. Likewise, everyone that bowed down upon his knees to drink, right? So dip down all the way into the water, dip their head down. And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. All right, so that's people who cupped their hand, grabbed water, and drank it that way. But all the rest of the people bowed down upon their knees to drink water. So only 300 of these 10,000 men cupped their hand and gave themselves water. All right. Verse 7. And the Lord said unto Gideon, bind the 300 men that lapped while I save you, and deliver the Midianites into thy hand, and let all the other people go every man into his place. All right. So that movie 300. I know it's about the Spartans and the Persians, but that number, that comes from this. That comes from the men of Gideon. The only difference is Gideon's men don't die like they do in that movie. Verse 8. So the people took victuals in their hand and their trumpets, and he sent all the rest of Israel, every man into his tent, and retained those 300 men, and the host of Midian was beneath him in the valley. Verse 9. And it came to pass the same night that the Lord said unto him, arise, get thee down unto the host, for I have delivered it into thy hand. But if thou fear to go down, go with Phurah thy servant down to the host. And thou shalt hear what they say, and afterward shall thy hands be strengthened to go down into the host. Then he went down with Phurah his servant. So you see that right there? So God even gave him an option. He said, if you're fearful, go down with your servant too. And of course that's what Gideon did, because he had a little bit of fear on him. Unto the outside of the armed men that were in the host. Verse 12. And the Midianites and Amalekites and all the children of the east lay along in the valley like grasshoppers for multitude, and their camels were without number, as the sand by the sea for multitude. Verse 13. And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow, and said, behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the host of Midian, and came into a tent, and smote it that it fell, and overturned it, that the tent lay long. And his fellow answered and said, this is nothing else save the sword of Gideon the son of Joash, a man of Israel. For into his hand had God delivered Midian and all the host. Right? So that dream was symbolic of Gideon overcoming the Midianites. And that's what we're about to read about. But just think about it. It's like a cake of bread falling into a tent, and the whole tent just falls over. That's how easy this is going to be for these men, because they have the Lord with them. All right. Verse 15. And it was so, when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, that he worshipped and returned into the host of Israel and said, arise, for the Lord hath delivered into your hand the host of Midian. And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, and he put a trumpet in every man's hand with empty pitchers and lamps within the pitchers. And he said unto them, look on me and do likewise. And behold, when I come to the outside of the camp, it shall be that as I do, so shall ye do. Verse 18. When I blow with the trumpet, I and all that are with me, then blow ye the trumpets also on every side of the camp, and say, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. Verse 19. So Gideon and the 300 men that were with him came into the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch, and they had but newly set the watch. Right, the people who were keeping guard just changed shifts, right? And they blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers that were with their hands. All right, so so you gotta imagine, right? On 3 different sides of this camp, right? Of this what's the word I'm looking for? Of this platoon, right? Of these Midianites, they hear things shattering. That's the pitchers, right? That's the pottery, and these horns, these shofars, these not trumpets. Excuse me, not like brass trumpets like we have today. These are like animal horns that they're blowing. All right, make a very loud noise though. All right, it's only 100 on either side of them, but it sounds like a hell of a lot more. All right. Verse 20. And the 3 companies blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers and held the lamps in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands to blow withal. And they cried, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. Verse 21. And they stood every man in his place round about the camp. And all the host ran and cried and fled. And the 300 blew the trumpets. And the Lord set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout all the host. And the host fled to Beshittah in Zererath, and to the border of Abel Maholah unto Tabbath. I wonder if this has Abel Maholah on it. I believe Abel Maholah is over here. Yeah, it's not showing. I believe it's in East Manasseh though. So, but they were running all over the place, running scared. That's the point. All right. Verse 23. And the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali, and out of Asher, and out of all Manasseh, and pursued after the Midianites. All right. So once they see the Midianites running scared, now everybody else is coming along with them. All right. Verse 24. And Gideon sent messengers throughout all Mount Ephraim, saying, come down against the Midianites, and take before them the waters unto Beth-barah and Jordan, winepress of Zeb. And pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side of Jordan. So that's where we'll find a stopping place tonight. So yeah, obviously they named those areas after those men that were killed there of the Midianites. But here we see a mighty deliverance of just 300 men against these thousands, right? So all praises to the Most High for that thing. And again, that's a blessing in Deuteronomy 28, and that's a blessing in Leviticus 26. All right, so the Lord keeps His promises; He keeps His word, and that's what you see when you read the Book of Judges. It'll build your faith up, because you see it's just one captivity after the next, right? And they keep getting worse and worse. All right. But the Lord always comes through on his deliverances, comes through on his promises, and the rest is far greater than the captivity that preceded it.